Hands up if you love a good binging TV shows. I want to hear from the crowd, what are some of the TV shows we've binged recently? Outer Banks. Good Charlotte, is what you said? Queen Charlotte. I heard some more. What's over here? Dance Mums. Shane. Oh, no, okay. Friends. All right, The 100. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, anyone? What about The Office? What about, what are some of the best shows? Anyone binge watch Horrible Histories when they were a kid? Yeah, that's where it's at. That's where it's at. What about, anyone remember that show, Stoked? No, just me. Oh, that was my show, man. I love that one. A show that I recently binge watched. Yes, Total Drama Island. Okay, campers. Anyway, that's a different me. All right, a show that I recently binge watched is Superstore. It was really funny. I binge watched Superstore in 2 weeks. For those doing the math in their head, that's 38 hours of television in 14 days. Probably not healthy, but it is probably a very funny show. I definitely put it up there with my top shows. Another show that I've binge watched recently, only this last week, you may not have seen this as much. It's called Clarkson's Farm. Has anyone heard of it? Anyone? A few? All right, a few hands. It follows this guy. You might know him from Top Gear. Yeah, we all know Clarkson. And it follows his experience of running a farm. The only problem is that he has no experience. And so he has to try and run this farm from scratch, not knowing anything, starting everything from the bottom to the top. And I've been watching this show recently over the last week or two. And it's funny. It's taught me things about farming. It's taught me some really cool things about sheep and wheat and things that I didn't know I needed to know and probably didn't need to know. But what I've realized in this past week is that this show has gotten between my relationship with God. Right? This show has gotten between me and my relationship with God. Now, hear me. I'm not saying that TV shows or movies are bad. I'm not here to be the cranky parent. I still think this show is hilarious, and I'm definitely going to finish it off. But this show in the past week got between me and my relationship with God. You see, I was preparing for this sermon, and I stumbled across it. Whenever I have lunch or dinner, I love to watch a show whilst eating my food. I just think, what else are you going to do? You're just going to sit there and eat your food in silence. That's so boring. So I stumbled across this show, watched episode 1. I was like, this is good stuff. So I watched episode 2, watched episode 3. And it got to the point where I was in a time when I knew I should have been working on this sermon that I'm preaching to you right now. And instead, I was watching Clarkson's Farm. Now, great entertainment, but it got between my relationship with God. You see, I had placed the enjoyment I received from this TV show above God and writing my sermon. I had become distracted. In essence, essentially, I had done the exact thing I was supposed to be preaching to you about tonight. It's pretty ironic. And that's what we're going to that's what we're going to hear about tonight. This idea of putting away idols and distractions and pursuits for worldly things and instead putting God first. And here's why this is important. Because there's so many things in our world that ask for our attention, our time, and our money. These things promise to make us feel full. They promise to fulfill us and fill that hole within our heart. But they never do, and they never can, and they never will. Because only Jesus can fill that hole. I want to be clear, friends. Tonight isn't about rules. Tonight isn't about me telling you what you can and can't do as a Christian. Tonight isn't me giving you that talk. Tonight is about learning how we, as a community at New Life Youth, can put God first in our everyday life. It's learning how we can get these distractions that sit between us and God and remove them. The struggle of putting God first is something I think we can all relate to if you're a Christian in this room. In our modern world filled with distractions and competing priorities, it's all too easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We find ourselves living in a society that values success, popularity, and instant happiness, and our attention becomes divided between our friendships, social media, television. You see, it's a constant battle that we face and our world faces. And tonight we want to address it. I wonder if you struggle with this battle. For many of us, for myself included, it's the struggle of distraction that draws us away from God, right? It's the appeal of Netflix or Stan or Disney Plus or YouTube or Amazon Prime, which, let's be honest, that's where it's at, right? Any Amazon? No? That's cool. That's fun. Seriously, guys, get on board. It's way cheaper than all the other streaming platforms, and it's got really good content anyway. But don't let it get in between you and your relationship with God. Am I right? But we let our lives revolve around these things, right? Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Be Real. Like, we have all these worldly things that are asking and demanding our attention, and we let our lives revolve around them. Our phones and our iPads and our computers take up so much of our time and attention. But here's the thing. These distractions will never fulfill us, but they do serve their job, and that is distracting us. They divert our eyes from God. I wonder if you can resonate with this. I wonder if you've found yourself before distracted in your relationship with God by one of these things. Maybe even as simple as a TV show. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's not your struggle. Maybe you sit on the other side of the fence. Maybe your struggle isn't that things are distracting your eyes from God, but there's something else that your eyes are on. Success, popularity, the friendships, money, whatever it may be. There are so many things in this world that want our attention, that are challenging each other for our attention. Good school grades, sporting achievements, whatever it may be for you. I wonder if there's some others of us in the room tonight that our relationship with God is being diverted because of what we aim for, our success, our grades, our sporting. What I do know is that in this room, each and every one of us has competing priorities in our lives. But tonight, as we jump into the story of King Hezekiah, my hope is that we can discover practical ways to reject these idols, distractions, and worldly priorities, and instead learn to put our focus back on God. Learn to pursue a faith-filled relationship with Him, putting Him first in all that we do. Before we get into the story of Hezekiah, I know that a lot of us in the room may not know who he is or his story or any context around King Hezekiah. So I'm going to try and catch us all up in 1 minute. Does that sound good? All right. You need to be listening because it's going to go quick. This is everything we need to know leading up to King Hezekiah. You ready? This is King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was King David. That's the shepherd boy who killed Goliath, all right? Now, King David's son was King Solomon, the wisest king to ever live. However, King Solomon was a player. He had over 700 wives and 300 concubines and girlfriends, right? Listening up, Solomon brought these ladies to his kingdom from every corner of the planet, along with their idols and their cultures and their worship and their gods. All right? Slowly, these different cultures and idols spread throughout Israel. That's the country where God's people lived. And the land became full of different gods, idols, and things to worship. We work our way down 10 generations to King Solomon's 10th generation down, King Ahaz, right? King Ahaz was a wicked, good-for-nothing king, right? Who allowed all these idols and cultures to run rampant throughout Israel. At age 36, King Ahaz dies, leaving behind a nation who is now worshiping hundreds of different gods, has closed and locked the doors to their churches, and now everyone looks to our main character, King Hezekiah, for what the nation will do next. Everyone got it? Awesome. As we head into the message and we share a little bit more about who King Hezekiah himself was and some of the things that he said, there are 3 main points that I want to focus on that I believe will help us put God first in our lives. And these 3 things are, we need to get rid of every idol in our lives. We need to seek God's guidance, and we need to learn to embrace our calling. If you have your Bibles, why don't you open them up, or more realistically, turn them on. And we're going to head to 2 Chronicles chapter 29. If you don't have them, that's okay, because it's going to be on the screen. Reading from verse 3. Get rid of every idol. In the first month of the first year of his reign, Hezekiah, having first repaired the doors of the temple of God, threw them open to the public. He assembled the priests and Levites in the court on the east side and said, "Listen, Levites, listen. Consecrate yourselves and consecrate the temple of God. Give this much defiled place a good house cleaning." So firstly, if we want to truly live a life that puts God first in everything we do, we need to get rid of every idol in our lives. Friends, anything that takes the place of God in our hearts and minds is an idol. It's something that we value, prioritize, give our time and attention to above our relationship with God. Let me say that again. An idol is anything that we value, prioritize, and give our time and attention to above our relationship with God. You see, Hezekiah realized that true worship of God required the removal of anything that stood between God and his people. One of our favorite Bible teachers in this church, Timothy Keller, says this: putting God first means surrendering our own will and seeking to live according to his divine purpose. Right? In a remarkable act of obedience, Hezekiah destroyed every single idol in Israel. He didn't leave any room for compromise. And you know what happened next? The doors of the temple were repaired and opened back up to the public, and Hezekiah led God's people back into worship. Hezekiah teaches us the importance of identifying and getting rid of idols in our own lives. This is really important. I believe that we are a generation that longs to see revival, but struggles to get rid of our idol. It rhymes, so it has to be true. We are a generation that longs to see revival, but struggle to get rid of our idols. Right? As young people living in a world filled with distractions and temptations, this task may seem daunting. We don't have physical statues or objects like they did back in King Hezekiah's time, but our idols have found their way into our everyday lives nonetheless. I want to take a moment now to talk about one of the biggest idols that I think we have in our lives. And you're not going to like it, but it's the phone. Did you know that your phone can reveal what you prioritize in your life? All you have to do is open it, head to settings, head to screen time, and you can see how much time you spend on your phone, how much time you're spending on social media and different apps. And hear me, the phone isn't bad, right? In fact, phones are great and they can be used for so much good. But we live in a world where we have idolized our phones and allowed them to become between our relationship with God. Not all of us, but I would challenge us tonight and say that a lot of us have, myself included. The statistics are eye-opening. As teenagers sitting in this room, the statistics say that you are likely to spend 7.5 hours on your phone a day. And the statistics say as teenagers who are Christians, if you're a Christian in this room, you are likely to spend 15 minutes in your Bible a day. 7.5 hours on your phone, 15 minutes in the Bible. Friends, we need to be honest with ourselves and take a close look at what we are giving our time and attention to. I fall into this trap. I fell into this trap with Clarkson's Farm. I was watching it and giving my attention to it rather than giving my attention to what I needed to be giving my attention to, and that's God. Perhaps your idol isn't your phone or TV shows, but rather success, popularity, material possessions, or the pursuit of approval from others. Regardless of where each of us stands, we can all learn from King Hezekiah's example. We need to take a close look at what we are prioritizing in our lives and make changes to ensure that God comes first. For some, we need to learn to put our phone down and spend time with others and with God. Others in the room need to stop chasing success in the world and instead learn through the word that we are already winners in Christ. Friends, as we let go of these idols, as we make these changes in our lives, we make room for God to move in our lives and give him permission to take first place. That's the simplicity of it. Idols decrease the movement of God in our lives. When we get rid of idols, the movement of God increases. It's not an easy task to put God first in our lives, but it's necessary if we want to experience a genuine relationship with God and see true revival. I'm going to have a drink. Secondly, it's not working. There we go. Secondly, we need to learn to seek God's guidance. You see, a little time after Hezekiah opens the temples and destroys the idols, he finds his city surrounded by these people called the Assyrians. They have an army much larger than his, and they threaten to wipe him off the map. This time we're going to read from 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verse 20 to see how King Hezekiah puts God first. King Hezekiah, joined by the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, responded by praying. Calling up to heaven, God answered by sending an angel who wiped out everyone in the Assyrian camp, both warriors and officers. Sennacherib, that's the king of the Assyrians, the bad guy, was forced to return home in disgrace, tail between his legs. When he went into the temple of his God, his sons killed him. It's wild, right? You see, another crucial lesson we can learn from King Hezekiah is the importance of seeking God's guidance. Hezekiah understood that aligning his life with God's will was essential for success and fulfillment. In every decision and endeavor, Hezekiah sought God's wisdom and direction. He didn't rely on his own understanding or the advice of others alone. Instead, he depended deeply on God's guidance, and as a result, he experienced incredible victories throughout his life. As young people trying to figure out the world, we face countless choices and challenges. We often find ourselves at crossroads, unsure of which path to take. The pressure to make the right decision can be overwhelming. But here's the good news. We don't have to face these choices alone. We have a loving and all-knowing God who desires to guide us every step of the way. Seeking God's guidance means acknowledging that his wisdom is greater than our own. It means humbly approaching him with our questions, concerns, and desires, and surrendering our will over to him. God has a unique plan and purpose for each one of us, and he longs to reveal it to us as we seek him. Practically, seeking God's guidance involves spending time in prayer, reading his word, and growing a personal relationship with him. It might mean taking times of silence and solitude where you just go away from all the noise, from anyone else, and you just sit in silence with God and say, God, what do you want to speak to me? It might mean finding a mentor, your small group leader, and saying, hey, can you help me grow in my faith? Thirdly, the message of King Hezekiah teaches us to embrace our calling. He reminded his people that they were chosen by God for a special purpose. You see, in 2 Chronicles chapter 29, a bit further on from where we read at the first time, he says this. Oh, that's wrong. There we go. Children, it's youth. That's our age. People who aren't yet adults, under 18, that's you guys. Don't drag your feet in this. God has chosen you to take your place before him to serve in conducting and leading worship. This is your life work. Do it and do it well. The message King Hezekiah shares here is extremely important to each and every one of us in this room. It's a powerful reminder that God has chosen you and us, the youth of the world, to play an important role in the future of Christianity. Our faith is not dependent on our parents or our grandparents. The future of Christianity is not dependent on our parents or grandparents. It rests on our shoulders. 1 Timothy 4 verse 12 says, don't let anyone put you down because you're young, but instead teach believers with your life, by your word, by your actions, by your love, your faith, and your integrity. God has called us to take our place to serve and worship him and to lead others in doing the same, that we may make his name known. This is our life's work, and it's not just about going through the motions. We are commanded to do it with excellence, to go above and beyond. Think about it. We all know the difference in this room between handing in an assignment that you know is going to give you a pass and handing in an assignment that you know you have done to the best of your ability, that you've done excellently. The same principle applies to our faith. God has not called us to simply complete the race. He has called us to run it and run it well. Rick Warren says this, putting God first doesn't mean neglecting your responsibilities. It means inviting him into every aspect of your life. Just like the youth of Hezekiah's time, we are called to embrace our identity as chosen children of God. It's not a coincidence that you are here tonight. God has a purpose for your life that goes beyond chasing success or popularity or being distracted. He has handpicked you to take your place before him and to do these two things, to serve him and to serve others. Remember, you were chosen. You are loved, you are called, and you belong. As you put God's name first in your life, you will see God's name put first in the lives of those around you. So what does this mean for us? What does this mean for you? Putting God first is not a one-time choice, but a lifelong commitment. And hear me, friends, it's not a commitment that you're going to get right. You're going to struggle and you're going to fail. We all do. But the goal isn't to be perfect in our walk with God. The goal is to be persistent in our relationship, commitment, and love for him. What change is God stirring up in your heart tonight? What needs to shift to give God the space to be first and to move in your life?